Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new edition of our online interview series. We want to get not only an update, but for the first time, we have a new company here, just IPO'd, US GoldMining. And Tim Smith, the CEO, is here with us. Welcome.
Hi, Jokke, and thank you so much for having me on the show. Really delighted to be here.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. And as I said, a brand new company, you just IPO'd, what is it, like 1 or 2 weeks ago? And I should also disclose, I'm a shareholder of the company. I participated also in the IPO because no wonder the name is saying it already. It comes from the famous gold mining Amir Adnani family, I would call it. And happy to have you here, Tim. That is great. So another, I would call, spin out from the original gold mining company. But before we start with your Whistler project, can you give us first maybe a little bit of an insight into your person?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so. So my name is Tim Smith. I'm the CEO of the brand new SpinCo, which we've called US GoldMining Inc. As you mentioned, we've just recently completed an initial public offering. We are now trading on the NASDAQ exchange under the stock ticker USGO. So my background is that I joined gold mining and US GoldMining Inc. about a year ago, maybe 14 months ago. And I came from Newmont, which many of your viewers may be aware is the world's biggest gold producer at Newmont. I was the director of generative exploration for North America. So I'm a geologist. I have an exploration background. I had spent 6 years at Newmont and Goldcorp. Before that, I was the VP of exploration for Kaminak Gold Corporation, and we discovered and developed the Coffee Gold deposit in Yukon, which we ultimately sold to Goldcorp in 2016 for $520 million, or approximately about $130 per ounce. Prior to that, I spent many years down under in Australia exploring for gold throughout Western Australia and the Northern Territory. So about 25, probably coming up to 27 years if I think about it now, total experience in exploration, gold mine development opportunities and production.
Mm-hmm. Okay, super. I mean, that's a outstanding track record, I would say. Of course, we know Kaminak, we know Goldcorp, that is also for sure, Newmont for sure, the little gold company we know. What made you to join US GoldMining? I mean, the Whistler project, it was sitting for several years into the old gold mining, now the US GoldMining. What makes you so positive about it, and why do you think now is the right time to really IPO it and to bring it to life?
Great question. I love that. Look, I was very excited to come and join the company. First of all, I was excited to come and work with Amir and my colleague Alistair Still, who of course is the CEO for gold mining. I had worked with Alistair at Goldcorp and at Newmont. Okay. I was excited to join this group because of the portfolio of opportunities that gold mining has, but in particular to take up the opportunity to run US GoldMining, the new SpinCo. The Whistler project, I think, is a unique opportunity for investors in the gold mining and exploration space. It really has large size. It's around 9.4 million ounces gold equivalent total when you add the inferred and indicated together. Great quality. When I really got into the data, I could see that there was a lot of opportunity, both in terms of the delineation and taking Whistler through into preliminary economic assessment, ultimately feasibility and development. I think it's a great asset. With the rising gold and copper price over the last few years, it really makes it look more attractive. In terms of its location, there's some additional really key catalysts that make it just a very exciting opportunity right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, super. I saw also, it looks, first of all, when you see some photos, it looks a little bit like out of the boonies. Yeah, I mean, you have an airstrip which I think can be flying in, flying out the whole year. But what I saw in your presentation drove my intention that the government wants to spend $8.5 million on a study to build a road from Anchorage and from that Mackenzie Harbor, I think it's called, up to your site. That would change a lot, right?
So I mentioned some of the catalysts, which I think really make Whistler a compelling story right now, and certainly that state of Alaska's support, the $8.5 million you just mentioned, into the design and permitting of that access road that will basically allow us to access the Whistler site, located 100 miles west of Anchorage. It will tie Whistler in, allow us to bring equipment and consumables into the mine and truck concentrate out to Port Mackenzie, as you mentioned there. So it ties into existing infrastructure. And I think just in general, Alaska is a great place to do work. With geopolitical tension in the world, it means that gold is a safe haven and a store of value, should increase in price. And it means that America in particular really wants to explore and develop resources locally. They talk a lot about resource security in the United States. So here is a fantastic asset. It's the closest large undeveloped gold copper asset to the major city of Anchorage. And Anchorage, of course, you viewers would be aware, is the main city. It has a population of the greater Anchorage area of around 400,000 people. So it's the economic and industrial center. It has the major port facilities and airports. It's a major transportation hub to Asia. And here we are with an undeveloped, a large, high-quality, undeveloped resource just 100 miles away, and the government wants to build a road directly to it. So it's just a great timing to IPO this company.
Yeah, and probably later on also they want to see, probably in 5 to 8 years, maybe a mine, I could imagine.
Absolutely, yes, of course. They have titled it, it's part of their Roads to Resources initiative. There are certainly other resources that road will access, but the fact that the road leads directly to Whistler is just a tremendous opportunity, something that we could not pass up. So as I say, that was one of the key catalysts for us to launch the company now.
Okay, super. I think you built your mineral resource estimate on approximately 70,000 meters of drilling, which is quite a lot. You have gold, silver, and copper. Especially silver and copper are, let's say, it's not only the flavor of the week, but I would say it's the flavor of metals for the next 10 to 20, 30 years, because we need it for all electronics, for solar, for e-mobility, you name it. Yeah. And gold, as you said, is definitely something we want to have for security, because that's real currency. So how high is the resource by now? Can you remind us shortly, please? And what would be next steps to enlarge that resource or to bring it, let's say, even in higher categories?
Yes, so I dropped the number earlier, 9.4 million gold equivalent ounces total, and I really should break that down. Because, of course, under 43-101 and SEC, we classify that as both indicated and inferred components. So under the indicated category, that 9.4 comprises 3 million gold equivalent ounces at a grade of about 0.8 gold equivalent ounces indicated. There's an additional 6.5 million gold equivalent ounces in the inferred. And as you mentioned, gold and copper, it's about 70% by value and volume gold, and almost 30% copper, and then some contribution from silver as well. So certainly great exposure for investors in terms of diversified commodities, and in particular, as you mentioned, with copper being a critical mineral, there's over 1 billion pounds total copper in this deposit, so a significant asset. In terms of making that bigger, great question. We look at the drilling, and certainly 70,000 meters seems like a lot, but we see lots of opportunities to expand the existing resources, the existing deposits along strike and at depth. So we think we can make those existing resources bigger. And when we look at our property, and we have a large property, 54,000 acres total, we see lots of very exciting exploration targets as well. So we're very excited to get the drills out to Whistler this coming summer, to start to drill around Whistler and the other deposits, to make them bigger, to delineate them to a higher confidence, but also to test some of these exciting new targets that we think could make brand new porphyry discoveries and really grow that 9.5 million ounces much larger.
Okay, so $20 million is a lot of money. So how many meters do you think you you might drill or you want to drill in that campaign this year?
Yeah, so we're going to get started with a fairly modest program that we can then build upon. So we have a camp at site already. We've just recently, as we announced via a news release about 2 weeks ago, we've just mobilized a construction crew out there to start to rebuild that camp. That will allow us to bring our geologic teams and mobilize the drills in July and start drilling August. This year, we're going to start with a 5,000 meter program that will take us about 3 months. So look out for news between August and October around the progress of that drilling. And of course, we are very excited in terms of looking forward to announcing drill results, and we think we're going to have some really exciting drill intercepts as we get into the fall. Now, we then have the option to extend that drilling program into the fall and early winter. We're certainly not constrained by seasonality. We can drive directly. It's about 2.5 kilometers via an existing road from our camp directly to the drill. So we're not reliant on helicopters. We're not going to be shut down by weather. If the drilling is going well, if the results are coming, we want to keep the momentum going. We certainly have the option to keep drilling later this year. Overall, what we have approved right now is a total 10,000 meter budget. That will actually leave plenty of room in the budget based on the 20 million that we raised via the financing associated with the initial public offering. We will certainly have plenty of cash left over after that initial 10,000 meters. So that will give us option to continue drilling and also to bring in other studies that will help us understand the potential to build a really compelling preliminary economic assessment for Whistler.
What are the costs per meter drilling in that part of the world?
Yeah, it comes in, we're budgeting around about 325 meters for the drilling.
Dollars.
$325 per meter for the drilling. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which is very good. And that really, I guess, recognizes two key factors. One, that we're not reliant on helicopters. This is not a helicopter drill program. So many programs in the north that lack infrastructure or that work in terrain that is very challenging. Our terrain is very amenable. I would encourage people to go to our website and look at our presentation. You can view a 3D interactive presentation there, which will give you an excellent virtual tour of what the landscape looks like. The terrain is easy to work in, very gently sloping topography. So we can drive right to our drill. So that brings the cost down. And of course, the proximity to Anchorage, just 100 miles away. So, we're not a remote exploration development opportunity. We are blessed by proximity to Anchorage and with great terrain that brings those costs down.
Okay, super. Do you face any, let's say, challenges with natives environmentally by nature? Do you have any reservoirs there or protected areas, or is it all clean and clear?
It's all clean and clear. We're on state land. We're 50 miles from the nearest parkland, the nearest national park. Being on state land is a great advantage for us because it means we're just dealing with the one regulator. So some folks who invest in Alaska might be aware that there are some challenges to some projects in Alaska.
Especially to your one neighbor, I would say.
Yes, so we differentiate ourselves from Pebble because we're in a different part of Alaska. Alaska is vast. You can fit. Alaska is the biggest state in the United States. I'm sure people know that, but here's an interesting fact for people. You can fit the next 3 largest states, which are California, Montana, and Texas, into the area of Alaska. So when we talk about our nearest neighbor, that neighbor is 200 miles away. And we are not in the same geography that could potentially have the same impact on fisheries as Pebble. Pebble drains into Bristol Bay. The rivers around Whistler drain in the opposite direction out into the Cook Inlet. It does have a salmon fishery, but it's far smaller than the Bristol Bay. We're on state land. There's no native land nearby. There's no parkland. We think there's a lot of really key differentiators that make Whistler that much more exciting and compelling.
Okay, super. Do you think that for next year already a PEA might be possible, or it's too early?
No, well, that's the plan that we're working towards,
Okay.
and certainly the use of proceeds as we outlined in our prospectus. That is what we're building towards. That is the natural next milestone for this project. Of course, we have resources already in the ground. We want to ensure that we undertake some drilling over the course of this summer and perhaps into next summer to make sure that we build those resources out to their full potential before we take them and wrap economics and a potential mine scoping study around how to extract those resources in the most optimal and economic manner to produce the highest yield. But certainly we're looking at commencing a PEA in the second half of next year. Now, if we make a discovery, we may wish to delay that, and that's a great problem to have because it means we need more time to drill out more gold. And that's a delay that I'm sure our shareholders will be totally okay with because it means that the project is getting bigger and higher value.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the positive luxury problem to have then.
Absolutely.
That is for sure. To what depths have you drilled so far? I saw a model of the open pit with the resource in your presentation. So, to what depths have you gone down so far, and what depths you think you will go in the next drill program down?
Great question, and thank you again for the reference to the 3D model. And I would just stress that if people want to go to our website, www.usgoldmining.us, and click on the presentations, there's an interactive verify presentation, which is a new 3D platform, and you can take yourself through an interactive 3D tour of the property. You can go underground, you can see the drilling, and you can see the modeled open pit cones that have been used to constrain the resource. Don't be confused when you see an open pit. There's no previous mining here. It is just a model that is used to constrain the mineral resource estimate. At the present time, the deepest open pit, which is the Whistler pit, on the Whistler deposit itself, goes to about 550 meters below surface. There is not much drilling beneath that pit, and we believe that the resources are open to depth. So we will be targeting down dip extensions to look at how deep we can take that open pit before we go forward and put it into a preliminary economic assessment. The other thing that viewers will see if they go to the Verify interactive presentation is that just a kilometre away from Whistler is the Raintree deposit. And Raintree is made up of both a small open pit component and another small underground component. Now that underground component is cut at a higher cutoff grade, at a $25 per tonne net smelter royalty cutoff. 25 as opposed to $10 per tonne for the open pit. Now when we do that, we see a core of higher grade sitting at depth. Now that particular underground resource at Raintree is open at depth, and we do look forward to exploring that in the future. It won't be our initial focus. We certainly want to start with the immediately accessible near surface, more readily extractable resources that come right to surface, such as Whistler and Raintree. But certainly in terms of proof of concept over time, we could be exploring this well beyond a kilometre depth, and certainly there are examples around the world. Newcrest, for example, does a very good job of block cave mining, which is a method of block caving lower grade bulk tonnage porphyry style mineralization at depth. And so certainly we do see those cores of higher grade mineralization better than a gram per tonne gold equivalent. We see it at Raintree, we see it at Whistler as well, and we're very excited about developing and continuing to take the Whistler high grade core to depth as well.
Yeah, and also the silver and copper content is also rising.
Well, the silver and the copper come together with the gold. They all occur together. So that is the interesting thing about the geology of this porphyry style of mineralization. Essentially, this is the roots of an old volcano that during the dying phases of that volcano had a big hydrothermal cell operating, leaching metals out of the country rock and depositing it in this plug of magma, this diorite, which was the roots of as I say, of an ancient volcano. the sulfides that are precipitated have copper, gold, and silver associated with them. So when we mine the gold, the copper comes along too, and the silver comes along. And at this stage, it's very early days in terms of how we would process that. But the initial work that is described in our 43101 technical report and our SK 1300 technical report is that the sulfide component in the Whistler porphyries can be floated. So that is the cheapest way to extract the gold and the silver, is simply to crush, grind, and then float the sulfide, and then take that sulfide concentrate, put it in a truck, drive it down the brand new road that the state is going to build to the port that already exists at Port Mackenzie, and then find a market for the sale of that concentrate.
Yeah, I think that shouldn't be a problem to find a market. Definitely.
Absolutely.
I have two last questions. First of all, who are your largest shareholders now after the IPO? And secondly, I would love to get your opinion on the gold market, and if you like, also silver and copper.
Yeah, absolutely. So our largest shareholder is our parent company, GoldMining Inc., which continues to own around about 81% of the company. Certainly, we had very strong support through the IPO from a number of institutions, including H.C. Wainwright, BMO Capital, Laurentian, and Sprott Capital Markets. And again, people can get a good grasp on the shareholding and the structure, which remains very tightly held at just 12.2 million shares outstanding from our presentation on the website. Now, yes, good question about the gold price. Always happy to opine on that. These are strange markets. I think today, over the last few days, investors have been favoring a strengthening in the U.S. economy and the U.S. dollar, which is creating some pressure on the gold price. But over the last 6 months, when we look back, gold has been on a tear. It's been a great time to IPO a gold company, of course, with gold up around $300 since about the end of last October, early November, up around 20%, and obviously hitting some peaks through March and April as we started to see the issues in the US with the regional banks struggling. I think there's a lot of people out there still calling for the US economy in particular to go into recession. And that will, cause investors to move more out of stocks and into things like bonds and precious metals. So, in general, the general rules of thumb that we will follow, that a weaker US dollar, a weaker economy equals a higher gold price. And then we would look to things such as just general global geopolitical tension often creates pressure and movement towards safe haven gold buying, which creates demand and obviously a high gold price. But I think there's a couple of really key underlying macroeconomic trends here that I think investors in gold should really be following, and that is that the central banks are buying up gold more in the last 2 years than they have since the 1950s.
Yes.
Now, I'm old enough. When I started my career, the central banks were selling gold. This was a major problem. Since the global financial crisis, they have tended towards buying the central banks buying gold. And that has really accelerated over the last 2 years. We saw data from the World Gold Council, for example, Q1 of this year, 2023. It was up over 200% quarter on quarter. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Q2 numbers look like, but certainly that is creating more demand, which longer term will support a high gold price. And countering that, the space we work in, the exploration and production space, what we see is that the gold producers, the major miners around the world, their reserves are dwindling. We're seeing that since about 2015, the total resources and reserves in the ground of the major gold producers around the world has reduced by almost 50%. This is why we're seeing so much M&A activity, because the producers are not able to keep up with their production. They're not able to sustain production, so therefore they must go out and buy ounces. with less supply in the market coming from production ultimately. Well, I should back up. We have seen production increase over the last couple of years as efficiencies come online at some of the bigger mine development projects. But if the resources and the reserves are dwindling, they will not be able to sustain that. So that's why we're seeing this M&A activity. So longer term, we certainly see less supply, therefore more demand and a higher gold price. And finally, I would say that there are plenty of very preeminent people in our market calling for some major increases in gold price. And I'll just pick one. Pierre Lassonde, founder of Franco-Nevada, and some would say the father of the gold royalty and streaming industry. He's been quoted as saying that he sees gold going to $2,400 this year, 2023.
Yeah, I see it the same way.
Longer term, next 5 years, he's talking about it going up to $10,000. And, over the next 30 years, $25,000 per ounce. These are big calls, but, Pierre Lassonde, this is one of the guys who's, very well respected, made a fortune in the gold industry and in terms of creating companies and mines, so very well respected. So you don't just have to take it from me. It's pretty easy to look at what some of the major players in the industry are saying about the longer term for gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Super. And this is why we need your gold, copper, and silver for the future. So make sure you explore well, find a lot, please, and bring it finally in production, I would say.
I look forward to that, Jochen. Look, this is my strength. I'm an explorationist. This is why I joined US GoldMining Inc. I'm so excited about the potential, not only to continue to delineate and increase the confidence on Whistler itself, but as I say, I'm very excited about the potential to go and make more discoveries over the next couple of years at Whistler.
Super. Tim, thank you very much for your time. That was a great insight, almost half an hour, but that's perfect for the first time. Now we have really talked about everything and look forward to the next update. And I would say let the drills turn and we talk again, and you hopefully have, in addition, good results.
Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Tim Smith, the CEO of US GoldMining, that just recently 2 weeks ago IPO'd company, the spin out of GoldMining, original company. And I think really interesting times, because now the time is right. We know the project for a good, I would say, easily 10, 12 years. And it was not, the time was not right with the copper price, with the gold price and the silver price. But now really with reserves and resources dwindling down, as Tim alluded to, on the one hand. On the other hand, you need new projects in safe jurisdictions, and Alaska is definitely one of the best jurisdictions in the world. And the demand is staying high and will stay high. So I would suggest you have a very good look onto US GoldMining. The company has $20 million in cash in the bank. They want to drill 10,000 meters, which will cost approximately $3.5 million this year. And we look forward to that, and check it out. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.